That's really cool, Mario. Hi, Marto. Okay. Okay. Are we the only ones? I guess.
Yeah, it looks like.
Okay, hope. Okay. I'm assuming there'll be a class next week. Next week, Sunday? I guess why not?
Next week?
Yeah.
Why? What is next week?
No, it's
Yom Kippur is Shabbos.
right.
Oh, hello.
How are you?
So guess what my background is?
Hold on. Is that Paris?
What is it?
Paris, no?
Eh?
Is it Paris?
No, but not too far. It's Rome.
It's Rome.
My grandson in his university, they're allowed to do 3D printing. So he printed the city of Rome and he
Oh, wow.
sent it to me. In a small, yeah. I don't know if you can see it.
Hello.
Hi.
Yeah, there we are.
Hi, Harold.
Hello, hello, sir. Hi, Shaya.
Hi.
Good to see you.
Hello.
Hi, Shaya.
Hello.
Hi, Benny.
Hi.
Hi, Mario. How's Rosh Hashanah?
Pardon?
Come sit down.
Okay, good evening, everybody. Kamar Chasima. Everybody has a good, sweet year. Everybody had an easy fast.
Yeah.
Tonight's shiur will be in memory of all the soldiers who have fallen since last October 7th and all of the people who were killed on October 7th
8:30.
and all the hostages that are still being held. At 8:30, we will join in a minute of silence that's going on worldwide. At that time in Israel, there's going to be a minute of silence, so we'll try to do the same thing here. So we are in Melachim Beis, Perek Yud Aleph.
Hey, Ernie.
Hi, Ezra. Hi, Yishai.
Hi.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just wanted to hop on for a little bit. I wanted to give some background to everything that you've been doing. I probably should have been on a few weeks earlier,
Thank
but
you.
the timing is tricky. But basically, if you look at big picture, even outside the stories that you're reading, is just to set up the geopolitical scene here is, when Israel arrives in this land, at least archaeologically, they arrive at a similar time to the Philistines. So the Philistines arrive on the southwest coast. The tribes arrive in the Central Highlands, Judea, Samaria, and then a bit to the north. They gradually enter into conflict as they each push in opposite directions. So as the Philistines push east and the tribes push west, they bump heads with each other. And that would have provided the rationale for the unification of the tribes under a single king. Like they needed leadership to be able to deal with the Philistine threat. So politically, that story kind of fits. In the 9th century,
Shaya, the Phoenicians came from Carthage, right? Or they think from
the
North.
Phoenicians, no, it's actually the opposite. The Phoenicians are essentially the Canaanim. The Pelishtim, who are recognized as the Peleset in Egyptian records, in
That's what I'm
around
saying. The Plishtim came. You
they
just
came from the Aegean, somewhere either from north towards like Turkey or somewhere further west towards Greece or Crete. It's not exactly clear where they came from, but the consensus view is that they come from the Aegean. Basically, they themselves are dealing with either starvation or war, and they move as a people into the Eastern Mediterranean. They attempt to land in Egypt unsuccessfully, and they are relocated in the southwestern corner of Canaan, or the southern Levant, as it might be known. The Pelishtim set up shop there in the areas. They had 5 major cities. Gaza was one, Ekron, Gat, Ashdod, and Ashkelon. Those are the major Philistine cities. When you think of the Phoenicians eventually moved later to Carthage. Carthage, the name Carthage, actually comes from the Aramaic, Kart Chadash. So Carthage was the new city of the Phoenicians in North Africa.
I see.
Okay, so
By the way, I just want to give a time. Today we're going to see that Shlomo HaMelech built the Beis Hamikdash in the year 933. And 155 years later, we're going to be dealing with Melech Yoash. Because we're going to see it's a calculation which takes us to about 780. So those are the years that we have been dealing with. We went from Shlomo until Melech Yoash, which is about 150 years later.
all right, so basically what happens is, so the 10th century, in the 10th century BCE, Israel is dealing with the Philistine threat. Eventually that kind of settles itself. In the 9th century, the largest threat to Israel is from Aram Damascus, so to the north. So a lot of these stories that you hear of Ben-Hadad and Chazal are now Israel's main threat is now to the north, not to the south. So that's the setting for these stories. There's something called, I've mentioned it before, I think, where there was this late Bronze Age collapse, or about 1200 BC, all the major powers of the ancient Near East collapsed one by one. The Hittim, the Hittites, the Babylonians, eventually the Egyptians, and that opens the door for these smaller type kingdoms to take root, including Israel, including Judah, and also including Aram Damascus. These are both very important, and basically what they're competing for is the trade routes. So whoever controls the trade routes controls the money. So these two forces are going to collide with each other. There is archaeological evidence for some of these characters. The Tel Dan stele, which you've mentioned in the past, Tel Dan stele is the earliest mention of David HaMelech, where basically he talks about this Aramean king is recording his victory, and he says he killed the king of Israel and defeated the king from the house of David. So House of David is Beit David. It's David HaMelech's kingdom. That's the first time. And I believe the name that's mentioned there is Hadad. So you have some evidence, and it's believed that this might be potentially the first king that's in Perek Vav. And then in Perek Ches, you had Chazal. Now Chazal, if you look at the story, it sounds like he's an usurper. He basically smothers the earlier king and takes the reins himself. There's evidence of Chazal as king of Aram from something called the Stela of Zakur, but there's also something called the basalt statue of Shalmaneser, where he basically calls Chazal a commoner, which seems to be a similar recognition that he was not somebody born into royalty, but he's also an usurper to the throne. So the characters that you're talking about in these chapters are recognized historical figures, and they fit the general picture. And there's even more that'll here later that I can discuss, but I figured this is like enough of a start. For some
Outstanding,
folks.
outstanding, because we've been dealing with Ben Hadad and Chazael and Yoram and Achav and which brings us to last week we dealt with Yehu ben Nimshi, who kills both the Judean king and the Israelite king, Yoram and Achaziah. And so Yehu becomes the king last week he becomes Melech Yisrael in Shomron. And now we're going to go back. Who is going to take the role of kingship in Judea?
You know,
So
let me cut you off a bit, just a second, since you mentioned bringing Yehu. Yehu is an attested character. Let me just pull up the.
so Yehu ben Nimshi is found in historical records.
Yes,
Wow.
he is in the Black Obelisk of Shalmaneser. So an Assyrian king, this is not something that's recorded in the Tanakh, but he basically says that he captured the area and he forced Yehu ben Nimshi, he actually calls him Ben Achav, if I'm not mistaken, but he forces him to pay tribute. And if
But
this,
remember, Yishai is not from the family. He killed out the last remaining families of Achav.
but you know, what's it called? If you are the Assyrians, you may not know the local
Yeah,
politics.
you don't know.
You heard of
They
Achav?
called it the house of Achav.
Yes. If this is actually Yehu, it would be, or some representative, it's potentially the first visual representation of an Israelite in the archaeological record.
Okay.
And that is in, I believe it's in the British Museum. So I just wanted to start you off with that. So I think the key message is the period you're talking about now here is are items and ideas that show up in the archaeological record. So this is not, you know, unproven miracles. These are real people.
Okay. Very good.
All right. Okay.
Okay. Perek Yud Aleph. Pasuk Aleph. Ve'atalyahu eim Achaziyahu. Right? Achaziyahu was the Judean king who Yehu killed, and Atalyahu was the mother. Ra'ata kimet benah. So she hears that Yehu has killed Achaziyahu Melech Yehuda. Vatakam vata'abed et kol zera hamamlacha. She herself, she was the daughter of Achav and Izebel, and she's very wicked. And she now wants to rule as queen in Judea. So she now poisons. The most of the Meforshim learn that all of the other sons, the brothers of Achaziah, were poisoned by the mother. So, are there any remnants, therefore, for Malchus Beis David? There has to be. Otherwise, why do we say Mashiach ben David? So the Gemara in Sanhedrin, Tzadik Amud Aleph. Amar le HaKadosh Baruch Hu leDavid. Ad matai yeh avon ze tamun b'yadecha? Al yadcha neherga nov ira kohanim. We go all the way back to Sefer Shmuel, that when Shaul HaMelech was chasing David, David HaMelech ends up killing out the city of Nov, the Kohanic city. And the blame is laid at David HaMelech's feet.
It's really Shaul who kills them, but it's because of David leading him there.
It's not David who kills them. It's Shaul who kills them, absolutely.
Yeah.
But the blame is laid at David. Also, V'al yadcha nitra Doeg ha'Edomi. Doeg, who cursed, who's the big Talmid Chacham, who's the Gadol Ador, is part of the Masorah. Doeg also ends up being killed by Shlomo HaMelech because of the trouble he caused David. Listen to this, what the Gemara says. Ve'ayadcha nergu Shaul u'shloshes banav. Because of you, Shaul and his 3 sons were killed. So Kadosh Baruch Hu gives David HaMelech a choice. Ritzoncha yichlu zarecha, o timsar biyod oyev. Either I'm going to wipe out all of your generation, or you have to give yourself up to an enemy. So Omar Lefanav, David HaMelech responds to Kadosh Baruch Hu, Ribono shel olam, mutav emsar biyad oyev v'lo yichle zari. I would rather be given over to my enemy and do not have my progeny wiped out. And we know David HaMelech ended up in Eretz Plishtim and almost was killed there, but Avishai saved him. Later on, David HaMelech changes his choice because of the experience he had being given over to the enemy. V'omar mutav sheyich lezari v'lo emsar biyad oyev. In the end, David HaMelech accepts that my progeny will be wiped out. He was makabel this punishment because of Novi Ira Kohanim. And the Gemara says, Uminolan de Kolozari de David. Where do we see that David's progeny was wiped out? From our pasuk we just learned. Ve'atalia emach Aziyahu, rasa kimeis benav atakam v'taberet kol zera mamlacha. She wiped out all of the remaining children of Beis David. So the Gemara says immediately, V'ha ishtayir le Yoash. We are going to learn tonight in this week's parak that one remaining ancestor of David, Yoash, was hidden. So the Davidic line was preserved in Yoash. So the Gemara says there also, Nami, Eshtayr Ev Yosar. One of the Kohanim of Nov, it said in Shmuel Aleph, Perek Chav Beis, Vayimaleit ben echad l'Achimelech ben Achituv, u'shmo Evyatar. So the Kohanim remained because Evyatar escaped. So just like Evyatar saved the Kohanic line, Yoash saved the Davidic line. And on Rav Yidom Rav, Evyatar l'Achimelech ben Achituv, if it wasn't for the fact that this Evyatar had remained, Lo Nishtar Mizar Shel David, sorry to Upali, there never would have been any lasting remnant of the Davidic Malchus.
Ernie, can I just say, it says here, I have that in Talmudic records in Gesubos, that Rabbi Yehuda Hanassi and his ancestor Hillel were descendants of David's son Shephatiah. I don't know who that is. So there were other descendants.
Well, yes, absolutely, Barbara. What we're learning tonight, though, is all of the eventual Davidic descendants comes from Yoash, who was hidden.
Oh, so they were also from Yoash?
There's only one left, Yoash. Every other Davidic king. Now, Yoash continues the Davidic line. So the last king, Tzidkiyahu HaMelech, who's taken prisoner by Nebuchadnezzar, so he's the last Davidic king that rules and now, when they came back from Bayesheni, yes, Hillel is descended from David. So eventually the Nisim, the head of the Sanhedrin, also came from Beis David. And Maharal claims he's descended from Beis David, and Rashi is from Beis David. And listen, we can't have Mashiach ben David unless the Davidic line had continued. Yes. Okay. What was that? Mm-hmm. There's another chazal that they bring in the Tanit Ve'Eliyahu. Minayin lenose isha l'shem gedula. Sof shemamidim alav me'osu mishpacha lema'ed zaro achra. Someone who marries for wealth or for power, eventually his progeny is going to be minimized. The Tana says, Matzinu b'Yehoshaphat melech Yehuda, kishra'a et achav melech Yisrael shayu lo shivim banim. Yehoshaphat, who was the king in Judea, saw that Achav had 70 sons. So, sof halach v'nischatin bo. That's when the Malchus Beis David got into trouble, because Yehoshaphat married one of his mechutin, became Achav HaMelech. And Ilmole Brisha, Karsa Kodesh Baruch Hu im David, remember, we learned a few prakim ago that HaKadosh Baruch Hu made a promise to David HaMelech that his Malchus will always remain. So, but if otherwise, if that promise wouldn't have been made, Yoash would have been killed by the mother Atal. What about the question, here now, Atalia, the woman, is going to become king in Israel. Now, the Rambam in Hilchos Malachim says, Ein ma'midim isha b'malchus. We're not allowed to appoint a woman as a king. Shenemar, som tasim alecha melech, v'lo malka. It's a drasha chazal. It only can be a male and not a female. Adds the Rambam, v'chein kol mesimot shebi Yisrael ein memanin bahem eleish. Any position of rulership, president of a shul, president of a yeshiva, president or the head of the community, whatever, cannot be a woman, based on the Rambam. Ulefi zeh lo hayla Atalia din melech. So the Rambam says she didn't really have the title of melech. The Minchas Chinuch brings the Noda B'Yud Nechsam Sofer that this din of som tasim alecha melech lo shach l'melech ben melech doesn't apply if the king gets it through Yerusha. The Yerusha is not getting it through some kind of familiar relationship, so the woman could not sort of be appointed it, but she's getting it through Yerusha because there's no one left in the family, so she's getting it. Now, there was a closer relative, Yoash, and he's alive. The Ben Melech. Now, there was a daughter of Yoram who was the sister of Achaziyahu, Yosheva. And she also would have been before Atalia. She's a brother's rule before a parent. That means if there's no brothers, it goes back to the parental generation. But if it's a brother or sister, the brother or sister would get it. So Atalia didn't bother killing the female child. She thought that she wouldn't claim the kingdom because of Ein Malchus Liisha. Okay, so it's just an interesting discussion. Pasuk Beis. Vatikach Yehosheva bas Melech Yoram. So Yehosheva is the daughter of Yoram, who's the sister of Achaziyahu, the king that had been killed, who is the sister of Yoash. Yoash is the remaining brother. So Yosheva, the sister of Achaziyahu, and the sister is Yoash ben Achaziah, Vatignovo to mitoch bnei hamelech hamumatim. She kidnaps the child. Oso ve'esmenikto b'cheder hamitot. He has a nursemaid, so he's an infant, in this place called the room of the beds. Vayastiru oto mipnei Atalia v'lo humat. He was hidden from Atalia, so he wouldn't be poisoned and killed like his brothers. So where is this cheder hamitot? Rashi says it was in the second story of the Kodesh Kodoshim. The Kodesh Kodoshim had an aliyah, like they would lower workers in a box. Those of you who have ever taken the tour in Yerushalayim at that music museum at the end, you can put on these glasses and they take you on a virtual tour of the Beis Hamikdash. And like they had like some kind of elevator that they would lower from the top of the Kodesh Kodoshim. So this was a secret place. Rashi says that's where they hid Yoash. Radak says it was in the Azora of Levium or the Kahanim.
Were they restricted to her because she was a woman, even though she was the wife of the Kohen Gadol?
What's your question, Barbara?
No, I'm just saying, this place was not restricted, even though she was the wife of the Kohen Gadol.
It is restricted, but maybe for
I guess for Pikuach Nefesh.
Pikuach Nefesh,
Right.
that's what they hit. Now remember, the Aliyah of the Kodesh Kodoshim is not the ground. Only the Kohen Gadol on Yom Kippur,
right.
one day a year, could walk into the floor of the Kodesh Kodoshim.
Right.
But this Aliyah Kodesh Kodoshim is not this. It doesn't have the same kedusha. The Malbim learns a little differently. That he's going along with the pshat that Rashi said that the way Atalyahu killed her children was through poison. So Yoash was still nursing milk from a nursemaid. And they wanted to give poison to the nursemaid so the milk would be bad and the child would die. The Cheder Amitot, the Malbim says, is like a hospital. The poison didn't kill all these princes right away. They died slowly. So they were all lying on their deathbeds. That's the Cheder Amitot. And that's where Yosheva kidnapped not just him, but the nursemaid. And that explains, because the nursemaid was nursing him. Pasuk Gimel. Vahi ita beis Hashem, mischabe sheish shanim, ve'atalya molechet al haaretz. So Yosheva was the wife of Yehoiada Kohen Gadol. So she was in the Beis Hamikdash all the time, like Barbara said. So they were able to keep Yoash hidden for 6 years. Meanwhile, Atalia is ruling. So Pasuk Daled, Uvashana Shvi'it, Shalach Yehoiada, the Kohen Gadol Yehoiada, sends Vayikach et Sarei Me'ot, LaKariv el, he calls for the officers, the runners, Vayaveh otam elav Beit Hashem. He calls them for a meeting in the Beis Hamikdash. Vayichrot lahem brit. He makes a covenant with them. Vayashba otam beVeis Hashem. Makes them take an oath in the Beis Hamikdash. Vayar osam es ben Hamelech. And he shows them, here is the true king, Yoash, the last remaining child of the Davidic line. He's making a peace pact with them, and he's going to anoint this Yoash as the king. And he promises them, I'm not going to remove you from your positions, even though there's going to be a new king. And he sort of makes them take an oath to him that they are going to be loyal to the Beis HaMalchus. Now, we know that the author of Melachim is Yirmiyahu Navi. Yirmiyahu is being very detailed about this revolution, this coup d'etat. And who is the leader of it? It's the Kohen Gadol. So generations later, they're going to learn from him that even a Kohen who's normally involved in the Beis Hamikdash, he also has to be involved in the government. And this image of Yehuda Kohen Gadol, the Das Soifrim says, must have been in the eyes of Matisyahu, the Maccabee, when they revolted against the Greeks. It's normally not the role of the Kohen Gadol, but they learned a limud l'doiros from these actions of Yehuda Kohen. The Choymat Oinach says, Chazal tell us, and the Rambam brings it as halacha, once every 7 years, they would clean out the Kodesh Kadoshim. And this is where they would lower workers in these enclosed, like an elevator. And they would have to do cleaning, painting, whatever, maintenance in the area. And that's why it took, in 7 years, they couldn't hold the secret anymore, because the workers would reveal the secret that there's a child here. Posukei. Vayitzavem lemor zeh davar asher tasu. He gives them a command. Hashlishis mikem boy haShabbos, v'shomrei mishmeres Beis HaMelech. We're going to learn 2 pshatim. There's going to be the way Rashi learns, and goes the way the Radak learns. First, we'll learn the way Rashi learns. That a third of you, that these hundreds of officers that were part of the Mishmar, that besides the Kohanim and the Leviim, there were all day Yisraelim saying Tehillim, davening in the Beis HaMikdash. These were part of the Mishmar. So he said a third of them, and they knew Mishmars came every week. Just like there were 24 Kohanic families. Each family was given 1 week, and then they came back for a second week, 25 weeks later. That way they covered 48 weeks of the year. The other 4 weeks are made up of all the various Yomim Tovim. What are these weeks? From Shabbos to Shabbos, the Kohanic family, the Mishmar, was divided into 6 Batei Av. Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Each Beis Av would come, and they would do all of the avodas HaKohanim for that day. People brought korbanos, the blood had to be thrown on the Mizbeach. Now, when somebody brought an Ola, the Kohanim, okay, it's 8:30 right now, so we're going to do 1 minute of silence, which is being done by Jews all around the world to memorize October 7th. Let's have a minute of silence. Okay, all the neshamas should have an aliyah, and the hostages should be rescued soon.
Amen.
So every Shabbos, a new family would come, and they would change on Shabbos, and that family would be made up of 6 Batei Av, and they would work the Beis HaMikdash for that week. So a third of the Mishmar will be the guards of the palace inside to make sure that the king doesn't get killed inside the palace by Atalia. Rashi is learning that when it says Boy Shabbos, it means Yom HaShabbos, when the new Mishmar came in. Ramban Ibn Ezra learns it's a week. Next pasuk, Vashlishis, Bishar Sur, another third has to be sent to the eastern gate of the Azara. Vashlishis Bishar Achar Aratzim, and the third is another gate of the Azara, closer to the Kodesh Kadosh. Ushmartem es mishmeres abayis masach, and So these three will watch each other, that they won't lose focus. And they're going to be protecting the king, the new king. Ushte hayados bachem kol yotzei haShabbos v'shamru es mishmer beis Hashem el hamelech. So the two that were on Shar Sur and Shar Haratzim, those are the two. That's the Shtei Hayados. The Mishmar that is leaving will join them and will do watching, so that there shouldn't be damage to this prince in the Beis Hashem itself, in the Beis Hamikdash itself. Now, just going to review it according to the Radak. The Radak says a third of the Mishmeres will be inside the palace, that the king shouldn't be killed there. And a third of those that are coming, the new families, will be with these two Yadois, which are made up of some of the ones leaving. Because remember, the ones that are leaving on Shabbos, they're done anymore. Means the ones that are coming, who's going to do all the work of the korbanos and all the work? So they're going to be more, the ones that are finished with their week, they were going to be better, according to Radak, to be guards. This mixed group will join the group that are leaving. It will be in Shar Sur. So in summary, the Radak says only a third of the incoming Mishmar was involved in Shmira, while Rashi learned all three. And according to Radak, the remaining guards came from the Mishmar that left. And he uses the reasoning, like I said, because once their job is done for the week, they're not going to be as busy as the groups that came. Otherwise, who's going to do the avoda of the tzibor, all the various korbanos that have to be done? Posuk Ches. V'hikavtem ala melech saviv, you shall surround the king. Ish v'chelav biyado, you and your weapons. V'haba el hasteros yumas. If anyone comes to assassinate the king, you have to kill him. V'yuet hamelech b'tzeito uvavo, you have to be with the king when he comes and when he goes. Pasuk Tes. Vayasu sarei hameod. Kechol asher tziva Yoda Kohen. These officers did like what the Kohen Gadol told them. Vaychu ish es anashav ba'ei haShabbos and yotzei haShabbos. The new families that came with the ones that are leaving, and vayavo el Yoda Kohen. They came to be commanded by Yoda Kohen. Vayitein haKohen, pasuk Yud, l'sarei hameot et hachanit, spears, ve'et hashlatim, shields, asher lamelech David. Right? When we talk like the David's shield, here's where it comes from. Asher beveis Hashem. These are spears that harken all the way back to when David HaMelech did battles. They were kept in the storehouse of the Beis Hashem. Shlomo HaMelech had made shields out of gold that David had left over. Now remember, Sheshach was an Egyptian king that came and took all the gold away. So some say these shields were only made out of copper because Sheshach had taken all the gold. Yud Aleph. Vayamdu haratzim, these are part of these officers. Ish v'kelav biyado, each man standing with his weapons. Miketef habayit manit at ketef habayit, from the right to the left. La mizbech v'labayit ala melech saviv. And the palace was connected to the Beis Hamikdash. Hayamanit was the north of the Heichal, and the Smalit was the south of the Heichal. Where the Mizbech was east, and where the Kodesh Kodoshim is west, right? Where the Kosel Moravi is today is closest to the Kodesh Kodoshim. Now, Yud Beis, when everybody's in position, Vayotzi et Ben HaMelech, They brought out the king from where he was hiding. Vayiten alav et hanezer ve'et ha'edut. Nezer is the crown. Edut is the testimony. Now, are these two different things? We'll see. Vayamlichu oto, and they crowned him king. Vayim shachu, and they anointed him with oil. Vayaku kaf, they applauded. Vayomru yichi hamelech, long live the king.
Why the Mashiach? Because of the people that didn't agree with him.
Yes, Tzvi asks a good question. Let's do things step by step. So, one pshat, the way Rashi and the Metzudas David learn, is that the Nezer is the crown. The Edus is the Torah. You remember there's a din that a melech has to write a Sefer Torah and has to be with them all the time. And it was hung on his arm. Like Chazal say, Sanhedrin Chaf Aleph Amud Beis. The Sefer Torah Yisera Shel Melech. That Melech has to have a Sefer Torah in his base Gnaza, in his library. Some say it wasn't the full Sefer Torah, it was just various parshios, like Aser Sadibros. And then every Melech had to write a new Sefer Torah. And that they had to keep with him.
Was he also required to take it when they went into battle? As
When the king went wherever he was, Yotzei v'Nichnas, he took that Sefer, the traveling Sefer Torah, went with him wherever he went. Now there's a discussion among the Parshanoim whether Yoash is now 7 years old. So the fact that they gave him this Sefer Torah, did that absolve him of the chiyuv to do it when he got older or not? So that's a discussion. Now, the Radak and the Metzudas David give a pshat as well, that Edus is like his royal robes, the big Malucha and the jewelry, like the crown jewels that are in the tower. Now, Tzvi alluded to the Gemara in Krisus Hey Omad Aleph Hoirius Yud Aleph Omad Beis, Ein Moishkin Melech ben Melech.
Melech, right. Mhm.
Now, Achaziah was king, and Yoash is the ben Melech. So there's a din, you don't have to do Mashiach. Shiny hacha mipnei machlokes shel Atalyahu mashchuoto. So whenever there's a machlokes or some kind of dispute, so since Atalyahu was ruling, that was why they anointed him. Like Mashchu Shlomo mipnei machlokuso shel Adoniyahu. Remember, one of Shlomo's brothers, Adoniyahu, tried to rule. So they did Mashiach to Shlomo Melech as well, even though he was Melech ben Melech. Now, why are they applauding? Simcha. And it shows Malchus, like it says by in Tehillim, Kol ha'amim tiku kaf, hariu lalokim b'kol rina. So when you applaud or you clap, that's a sign of accepting a Kodesh Baruch Hu.
Excuse me, Ernie, wouldn't it have made more sense to remove or address Atalia and her followers? Here they're very cautious, etc. Why didn't they get rid of Atalia? And I'm sure she had her followers. Somehow that would have made more sense in terms of the security of bringing out the new Melech.
Okay, we'll see. Let's hold that question. I think it's a good question. There was a reason, I think, why they made him Melech first. Let's just continue first here a little bit. They didn't blow shofar, but they did blow shofar by Shlomo Melech. So here they didn't blow shofar a little bit because of it's part of Barbara's point. They didn't want Atalia to hear immediately about what's going on. So they just applauded, but they didn't blow shofar. Now, there's another pshat in Nezer and Edus, that Nezer and Edus represents the same thing. It represents the crown. Why is the crown an Edus? So the Gemara Avodah Zarah Mem Dal Rabban Aleph quotes the pasuk by Yotziat ben Hamelech by Ten Levet Nezer v'Taidud. Nezer zu klima. It's a crown. What's Eidud? Amrav Yidam Arav Eidud Hu lebeis David. Shekol haroy lemalchus hol maso. So I don't have a picture. I should have sent a picture. There was a crown that only fit on the skull of people from the house of David, because there was a bar that came down in the middle of the crown. So it's almost like they had a ditch in their skull. It's like they had a furrow in their skull. So when you put the crown on their head, it fit. And it only if you were from Beis David would, as Rashi says, Yoshevet Barosho Yafeh u'mechuvonet lemidat Rosho. Because she'ein roy lemalchus ein almoso. The crown wouldn't fit anybody else. And therefore, Nezer and Eidus, it was the Eidus, it was the testimony that he's the right king, that he's Mishpachas Beis David. Remember, the people have known that Atalia has wiped out all the princes. So who is this kid? Why would they believe that this kid is from the house of Beis David? So because they put the crown on his head and it fit, they knew that it was Eidus, that he's from Mishpachas Beis David. So now we get to Tzvi's question. Why didn't they do Meshicha before they coronated him? That's normally how you do it. So some want to say, the Kli Yakar says, it's only now that after they saw that the crown fit him, then they recognized that he's from Zerah David, and then they were sure that they could be Moshechem. So they needed to crown him before they did the Meshicha, because it was a question of who is this kid? Is he really from Beis David? Another interesting point. Shaul HaMelech and David HaMelech were anointed by the Navi Shmuel. Shlomo HaMelech was Nimshach by Tzadok Kohen Gadol and Nasan HaNavi. So here it's Yehoiada Ubanov. Yehoiada the Kohen Gadol and his sons. One of his sons is Zechariah ben Yehoiada, who we're going to learn in Divrei Yomim was a Navi. So here also we have Kohen Gadol and Navi, who was able to be Nimshach Yoash HaMelech. Okay. So now what happens with Atalia? Vatishma Atayat kol haratzinaam. Atalia hears they're dancing, they're clapping. Vatavo el ha'am beit Hashem. So she goes to the people. She couldn't get near the king because he was being protected the way we've described. Vatei Vinei HaMelech omed al ha'amud kamishpat. She sees that Yoash is standing in the special place. It was a bima in the Beis HaMikdash where the Melech stood. There's officers around him. They're blowing trumpets. It's not like the people are upset. They're happy. They're also blowing. So Vatikra Atalyad Begadeha. Atalia tears Kriya. Vatikra Kesher Kesher. She calls out, it's a coup, it's a coup, it's a revolution, it's a rebellion. Vayitzav Yehoyada Kohen et Sareya Me'od Pkudei Achayim. Yehoda the Kohen Gadol gives a command to the officers. Vayomer Alehem Hotziu Ota El Mibeit Lashterot. Take her out of here. Ve'abba Acharei Hamet Bacher. And then whoever comes with her, kill them if they try to stop. Ki Amar HaKohen al Tumot Beit Hashem. The Kohen Gadol does not want Atayah to be killed in the Beis HaMikdash. But once they're outside the Beis HaMikdash, she could be killed. Vayasimu layadayim. So they opened up a place for her to walk. Vatavod derech mavoras usim beit hamelech, and she walked in the path of the horses. Vatumat sham, and she was killed there. It doesn't say anything about whether she was buried or where she was buried. Pasuk Yud Zayin. Vayichrot Yehoyadat abrit bein Hashem uvein hamelech uvein ha'am. Yehoyada creates a covenant with the king that he's going to follow in the derech of Hashem, and that the people will leave their evil ways. Remember, they were worshiping the Baal, they were worshiping Avodah Zarah under the bad Davidic kings. Liyot lam Lashem uvein hamelech uvein ha'am. So it's like a tripartite bris between the people, the king, and Hashem. That the people will be trustworthy and loyal to him, and as long as he's going to follow in the derech Hashem.
Ernie, isn't this unusual that the Kohen Gadol takes the role of creating a bris when instead of a melech doing that, or instead of a Navi doing this? This is the first time we've seen this, with the Kohen Gadol taking control, basically, of how the government is going to be run.
So two things. Number one, the melech is 7 years old, so it's like a regency. Okay. I also mentioned that Yehoiada's son is Zechariah, a Navi, not Zechariah and Treasra, but another Navi called Zechariah. So I pointed out that just like by Shaul and David, they were anointed by a Kohen Gadol and a Navi, or at least by Shaul it was Shmuel, by Shaul and David. Shlomo had a Kohen Gadol and a Navi. There was a Navi there. But yes, that's why I mentioned that Matisyahu, the father of Yehuda Maccabee, the other Maccabim, took lesson from here, this Kohen Gadol, that b'makom she'ein ish, yishtadel lios ish, that he jumped into the fray here. And remember, the Atalyahu, Achaziyahu, Yehoram, they were all Rishonim. And they were Machdi Yisrael B'avodah Zarah, and all the other Averos. So Yehoyada, the Kohen Gadol, Kohen, Kisifse Kohen Yishmeru Das. The Kohen is involved in teaching Torah. So that part, we can understand. That he's trying to get Klal Yisrael to do tshuva. And yes, this issue of getting more involved in the government was a chiddush. And look what happens. Wherever they had built up a temple to the Baal, Vaititzu, they destroyed it. Et mizbechotav, et slamav, the altars, the idols, shibru ete, they broke it up into pieces. That's how you mevatel avodah zarah. That Matan Kohen Baal, there was a person named Matan, who was the priest to the Baal Hargul of Namizbo. He was killed. Vayasem HaKohen Pekudot al Beit Hashem. They went to correct the Avodah in the Beis HaMikdash. That's what this last word, Vayasem HaKohen Pekudot al Beit Hashem, the various mishmors, they had to fix everything. It looks because when these bad kings were there, nothing was remaining in the Beis HaMikdash in a normal way. So there's an attempt to repair the Beis HaMikdash. And this is going to extend into next week's parak, extensive repairs and a huge appeal, like Walter's auctions. We're going to see how they raise money and they had to raise a lot of money to do all these corrections. Vayikach pasuk yutes. Vayikach et tzareh me'od v'tkariv et haratzim v'kol haaretz. Vayaridu et hamelech. Now they took the king with the accompaniment of all of these officers from the Beis HaMikdash to the palace. Vayavo derech Sha'ar Haratzim Beit HaMelech. They went in a place called Sha'ar Haratzim. Vayeshev al kisei hamlachim. And now he was going to sit on the throne. Vayismach kol am haaretz, the people were happy. V'ha'ir shaketa, and the city was quiet. vet Atalyahu hemitu b'cherev Beit HaMelech. And Atalyahu was killed in the palace, not in the Beis HaMikdash. Now, what is this? We already told it that she was killed. Why are we being told again? So some say that in the previous posuk, she was like a ghost face. She was like on her deathbed. And now they finished her off. Now, Barbara asked a very, very good question. On what basis did they kill her? So a melech, you go back to the rule of the king. Whoever is moirid b'melech, you kill them with sayif. They're killed with a sword. And that's why she was killed now, because it's only now that Yoash was declared king. So Barbara had asked correct, why didn't they? So it's only now that they had a king that through the pekuda of the king, they're even allowed to kill her. You can't just kill people, but midin melech, you can kill her.
Interesting, because she declared herself king after she killed off all her progeny.
No, but they didn't have any halachic
Yeah,
validity.
it didn't have the
According to the Rambam, an Isha cannot be king.
But they're celebrating it. This is like a repeat of last week's parak, the previous parak, where you had Yehu destroying all the Baal, killing all those who worship Baal and destroying the bad thing. And here it comes again. It's like
What we see is, well, remember, there was a fulfillment of the prophecy of wiping out the house of Achav and Izebel.
yes.
And then it seems like there was a ruach of tshuva, because you see it affected both in the Malchei Yisrael and in Malchei Yehuda. The same thing happened at the same time.
But it didn't seem to affect Atalia. She was a descendant. She was a
Oh.
child then.
He was a child of Izebel, right? So she
Yeah.
kept them going. But I think very good questions were asked, and I think we resolved most of the questions as we learned through the parak.
Mhm.
Okay, so next week we're going to continue with the rule of Yoash, who's a good king.
Thank God.
According to most opinions, we'll see. We'll see.
What did you say?
I said, we'll see whether Yoash remains a good king throughout his rule. But there's going to be a debate.
Does
about it.
he?
Yes,
Well,
thank you.
I'm not going to give it away. I want some perils of Pauline.
Yeah, that's right. Don't give it. Yeah. Tune
The
in next.
the chart of kings that I'm looking at has him listed as good/evil.
Right.
Like they all start out good.
They start out good.
Yeah.
Terrible.
So next week will be Sunday night. Sunday night, same time, 8:00. No, Yom Kippur Shabbos.
Right.
So everybody should have an easy fast and a meaningful fast, and everybody should have a good week before we get up to Yom Kippur.
Yeah, Gemar Chatima Tova to everybody. It should be.
Thank you so
Klal
much.
Yisrael should have a big Yeshua. There's a
Oh,
lot of
really not me.
rockets going